Hello, hello, hello. I've been busy with lots of things, so I figured it's about time I get back to the channel. I wanted to talk about this Neville Goddard quote. Neville Goddard says, "The great secret is a controlled imagination and a well-sustained attention, firmly and repeatedly focused on the object to be accomplished." So he says your attention has to be well sustained, firmly and repeatedly focused on the object to be accomplished. So this is not something that you can only think about once or twice randomly. You have to be disciplined with it. And so many people today are not disciplined. We have this, it's like a shiny ball syndrome where your attention gets drawn to the nearest thing, the nearest moving object, events at hand. I mean, sometimes things come up in your life and you may get caught up in the 3D. You can get caught up in the 3D and, it happens to everybody. The key there is to just, when you realize it, swing back. Bring your attention back to what you want to be focused on, to your desire, okay? And it just takes practice. And like I said, everybody gets caught up in the here and now. It's just a natural thing. Don't sweat it. Don't worry about it. Don't beat yourself up over it. Just when you realize it, bring your attention back. And eventually it'll get easier, But, a lot of people today do, you have the internet, media, whatever. Life moves at a much faster pace today than it has at any time in history. Now, and it also depends on what society you live in. You may live in a society, say one of these, maybe a more rural society where people are slower paced, so you can focus better. You don't have as many distractions. But with the internet now on everything, right? It's on your mobile phone. Who doesn't have one of those? And it comes into most homes. That fast pace, that constant inundation of news and other things happens a lot more. It can reach you anywhere. Right? Now you can choose to walk away from it for a little bit and slow things down. That might be useful. And you may have the benefit of living somewhere where things are kind of slow. Now, if you live in a big city, a big busy city, it might not be as easy, but you can still do it. You can close the windows, pull down the shades, make some quiet time to focus. If that's what you have to do. And another thing about this quote where he says the great secret, right? Rhonda Byrne, who made that movie and wrote that book, The Secret, she admitted that Neville Goddard was a big influence on her. This all comes from this stuff. It all comes from Abdullah, really, because Abdullah schooled Neville Goddard as well as Joseph Murphy. A lot of people like Bob Proctor, Rhonda Byrne, Deepak Chopra, probably a lot. He got a lot from this as well. I mean, he also has the Eastern philosophies, and who else? A lot of these online and modern law of attraction gurus. I honestly think Tony Robbins probably is familiar with this material as well. He's repackaged it into his own thing, and then granted, he's got his own material. He adds to that. I'm not saying he doesn't. But you can see that a lot of this stuff, the great secret, Neville Goddard says the great secret is a controlled imagination. The secret is your imagination. But what about the imagination? It's controlled. Its attention is sustained, focused on what you want, right? Firmly and repeatedly focused on the object to be accomplished. So that's your key right there. That tells you everything you need to know. So that's where we expand on these things like I have a million times before and talk about the mental diet and persistence. And if you fall off the wagon, climb back on. Don't beat yourself up. I say this stuff all the time. It bears repeating. All right. I'm sorry if I sound like I'm going to use a dated term here. Some of you newer, younger people may not understand it. It's called I sound like a broken record. In the old days when we had record players, vinyl records, if the record had a scratch or a gash in it that was deep enough, it would skip. A lot of times it would skip and repeat. It would get stuck in a certain groove, and it would keep repeating over and over again. The broken record. I sound like a broken record if I'm repeating the same thing over and over again. But even Neville Goddard said in his lectures that if it sounds like I'm repeating this stuff, it's because I have to. Neville said that. He repeats it because he has to. Because he has to keep reminding people. Because people, when it might be human nature, when something works out, when you manifest, something happens that you've been focusing on, right? It happens in such a believable, convincing manner that you are tempted to think it would have happened anyway. That really your imagination had nothing to do with it. It's so natural. It comes in so natural with the circumstances and the people around you. It would have happened anyway. And you go right back to sleep. That's what Neville says. He goes, you will go right back to sleep. They have a bit of success. They enjoy it, and then they convince themselves that it would have happened anyway, and they go right back to sleep on autopilot. Instead of using that knowledge, that light bulb, right, the epiphany to say, oh, I really did make this happen. Now I'm going to move on to other things. So Neville knew he had to repeat this stuff, and I know I have to repeat this stuff as well. So I'm going to keep repeating it, whether you like it or not. Because you need to be reminded. I need to be reminded. I remind myself when I remind you. So, and just remember, the secret and all this stuff, it came from, it's all the same stuff, packaged in different ways. I prefer to get it straight from another old term, cliche, the horse's mouth. Neville. To me, he says it the best. So that's where I choose to get my most of my inspiration from. And again, go back to the lectures. Listen to the Neville lectures over and over again. You could listen to the same Neville lecture over and over again and get different things from it at different times. Did you know that? You really can. You can get different things at different times from the Neville lectures. Just because you listen to it once doesn't mean you caught everything. You may have heard all the words, but you may not have really. You go back and listen to them over and over again. And I really recommend you go back into my playlist, into my video list, and look up Feel After Him. And listen to that one over and over again. That one is fantastic because it has everything in it. But any one of his lectures, same stuff. Imagination, your wonderful human imagination. Focus, mental diet. So there you have it, once again. I hope that this reminder is well received, that you needed to hear this, because people really need to hear this stuff over and over again, or they go right back to sleep. Don't hit that snooze button on life and just go right back to sleep and, let things happen randomly. You need to control it, because when you get these random thoughts and you get sucked in, they manifest new things, and they may not be the things you want to experience. So many times I've had, like, say, in the past, I've had issues, say, just vehicle troubles, things in my house things that need repair, that you tend to focus on because you remember it, and you focus on it out of fear. Oh, I hope that doesn't happen again. I hope that doesn't happen again. So you start thinking about it over. And then before you know it, boom, it happens again. I can't tell you how many times the heating pipes in my house have gotten these little leaks. And I've either had to get a plumber over to fix part of it, or I've had to do a repair myself on a certain section of it. But it usually comes after I focus on it. And a lot of times it's autopilot thinking, because I wasn't disciplined enough to stop thinking about it, or to at least think about it and say, yeah, it's fine. It'll be fine. And I can't tell you how many times I've said, oh, this is fine, and it okay, here's a good one. Just the other day, my sink in the kitchen. I just had this thing, the faucet, replaced by a guy I know is a plumber. I couldn't get under. It needed an extensive repair underneath to the drain and everything. And at the same time, we had him replace the faucet because it needed to be replaced. The old one broke. So he replaced it only a few months ago. Now, we've had issues like this before with these things. So you tend to think about them in a negative way, which brings about negative things. So what happened? I'm using the darn thing, and the faucet pops off. Before you know it, I have a geyser of water that hits the ceiling. I immediately turn off the water to stop the flow, and I'm like, I don't believe this. It happened again. And it's not even that old. How could it be broken? So I immediately said, I'm not saying this whole thing is a manifestation for me thinking. Just hear me out. So I immediately start looking at it, and I notice there's a thread, like a screw thread on the inside. Somehow through using the faucet back and forth, moving the thing, it unscrewed part of it. Like the top that pivots unscrewed the center shaft from the bottom where it came loose. And it turns out it unscrewed itself. It wasn't really broken. So I screwed it back on and I fixed it. Now, that sort of thing, I think it was just a reminder because you get caught up in these things. I get caught up in these things too. I immediately texted my wife. She was out. The sink is broke. She's like, oh no. And then when I realized what happened, I said, oh no, I fixed it. But I think it was a reminder to not let these random circumstances catch you off guard or send you into a tailspin or into negative thinking, because you can easily say, you can go down the rabbit hole with that and say, oh, it's not a far stretch to say, oh, the sink, that problem. Oh, what else is going to happen next? That's a good one. What else is going to happen next? With the expectation it's going to be a bad thing. You can easily get sucked into these lines of thinking, is what I'm trying to say here. So you immediately cut it off. Instead, I took the tack of, oh, it was nothing. It's always nothing. It's always something I can fix. It's always something that I can fix. It's always something simple. And you'd be surprised how that sort of thinking works on the positive side. You know, I try to remind, people, my wife especially, with things when they go wrong in the house, don't go down that line of fatalistic thinking. Oh, I can't stand this old house, or what's going to happen? Because you're just setting yourself up for future issues with that sort of thing. And you can apply this to anything in your life. It's better to just fluff it off. It was nothing. It was nothing. It turned out to be nothing. Or even if it's something where you need assistance to fix it, try to stay on the positive. Try to have that positive, well-sustained attention on, and control your imagination to think to the positive side. It'll be a simple fix. It'll be a cheap fix, whatever. Now, it may not 100% always work out that way, but this can be a gradual thing. Steer towards the positive as much as you can, because it doesn't do you any good to steer towards the negative, because you will be affecting things in the future. It's a delayed reaction. and you want things to go more on the positive, quick, easy side by focusing your attention that way than on the negative, fatalistic, woe is me, oh, it's terrible, just my luck, that sort of thinking. You don't want to think like that. That I'm unlucky, it's just my luck, there's another saying that you have to get out of your thing. People will say, well, with my luck, this is what'll happen. And sure enough, that's a whole line. You need to get that whole method of thinking out. And I know it's easier said than done. It takes some practice. But now I catch myself a lot quicker than when I used to, because I've focused on exercising that stuff from my vocabulary, from my thinking. And it's a process, and eventually you start to think more positive. You will swing the other way, but you have to start at some point. And if you fail, don't worry about it. Just keep focusing. Pretty soon it'll be a habit. It takes a certain amount of time to create new habits and to get rid of old ones. And with this, it's no different. So don't worry that it's not an instantaneous thing. But the more you think in a positive manner, you don't let things throw you into a tailspin all the time. You think in a more positive way, things will work out better for you, because you're controlling your imagination. You're putting. It's not just about those big things that you want, like the better job, the better salary, this, that, or the other thing. It's also day-to-day things that make your life either happy or miserable. Quality of life is a big thing. It's not just about, winning the lottery or whatever. It's not just about that. And I'll tell you, ever since I started thinking more positively about things like money, whatever, all of a sudden, big raise at work, multiple year raises with bonus and everything else come out of the woodwork. Stuff I wasn't even expecting, because, I wasn't aware they were even working on this. Maybe they weren't. Maybe it just came out of here, right? Not maybe. In reality, it did. I'm just saying it like that. So, focus on what you want out of life, whether it be the big things or the small things, everything. Try to be more positive, more happy, more upbeat in your thinking. Be more optimistic in what you expect out of life. That's what I'm trying to say here at the root of it. Be more optimistic. Don't be pessimistic or fatalistic. Choose optimism, and things will go smoother for you in all aspects. And it will also help you with the manifesting. Be positive about manifesting. Don't sit. If you're sitting there saying, "Oh, I really want to manifest that," and you say you have a session where you're imagining, you're affirming, whatever, all this great stuff, and then as soon as you're done, you go back. Now you took 2 steps forward. Now it's time to take 5 steps back, because the whole rest of the day you're going to be complaining about, I don't have enough for this. I can't afford that. Why are these bills coming due? Woe is me, blah, blah, blah. And then you wonder why your stuff isn't happening or it's taking forever. That's why. You need to be focused. You need to prune that, those ideas, that wildly growing tree that's your imagination, the way you would prune the fruit tree, as Neville says. It's your choice. It's your choice what to do with your own mind, with your own imagination, with your own consciousness. So do it in a positive manner. Be optimistic. So I hope this helps. Please like and subscribe. Please watch all my other stuff. Share the thing around so I can get more subscribers. I really appreciate your love and support, and I'll see you next time.